Hello and good morning everybody, my name is Alex and today I am going to be taking a look at the Saucony Kinvara 7. It's this one here. It's been out for a little while now, but yeah, I did get a chance to run a lot in it and I wasn't really certain what my opinion really was on this shoe, so I took a little time until I make this review, but now I think I can speak on it with as much objectivity as possible. So I've been running last year in the Saucony Kinvara 6, which is this shoe, and I really loved it. It was my favorite running shoe of that year and my favorite running shoe indeed of all time. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long. It lasted about 400 Ks-ish, not because of the outsole, but because of the cushioning. It just washed out. So along comes the Saucony Kinvara 7. What changed? A lot. Most importantly, they changed the cushioning material in the heel, which is kind of like a signature thing for the Kinvara series. And it was the power grid cushioning, and they changed it to become the Everrun cushioning. Now, that's only names. So essentially, Everrun is kind of like the boost foam from Adidas. More responsive, not more responsive, but more energy return. And so it's also supposed to be more, longer lasting. That is, for the heel back here, supposed to provide you with more cushioning in the heel, more direct cushioning, and a better cushioning feel in the heel. And I think that works. Above all, however, they changed the entirety of the midsole. It's this EVA Plus foam. It still is the same thing, but through the way they shaped, those grooves down here, compared to the Kinvara 6, where they were much deeper, much more significant. The shoe becomes much less flexible in the forefoot and throughout the entirety of the shoe. It's still quite flexible, but it's not quite as flexible and responsive as the Kinvara 6 was. So what is this then? It is a shoe that is not quite as much of a racing flat as it is a normal everyday trainer. Right? So the Kinvara 6, the exciting thing about it was that it was this everyday training shoe, and at the same time it was so light and agile and nimble that it could also have been a racing flat. I even raced a half marathon in it. It was rather fast. It was a new PR for me. With this one, I wouldn't really race any race because it just doesn't feel as agile and as flexible and racing flat-like as the previous version did. Now, an important thing about this shoe, as with the last version, is that it only has a 4mm heel-to-toe offset. And that is very good and actually a sweet spot that I like very much. And it gives you kind of a more natural, more minimalist running feel as far as the heel-to-toe offset goes, while still providing you with enough cushioning to get you comfortably across long distances. And this is a very interesting point for this shoe. I did a 30k long run the other day with this shoe, and it was very good, very comfortable indeed. And at the same time, it wasn't overly cushioned, so I still, it kept me on my toes. So for those really long runs where you still don't want to be overly comfortable, you want to be prepared for race day scenario where you go out with all-out racing flats, this is a really good choice. And generally, having this 4mm heel-to-toe offset, which I talked about a few seconds ago, is very good because it kind of makes your running form. I feel like it improves your running form because the way you hit the ground, it becomes more of a mid-foot running style. If you work towards that, and the shoe can support you if you're making those efforts, which is great, I think. Now they also changed the overlays a bit from last year. I think what they did is great. I like it. Everything is a bit more flexible, except the toe area right here. You see that? This is where my large toe is coming through from below, which is bad, but it's fine. And it didn't the issue didn't extend any further. Aside from that, the material of the upper is something I really like. Very breathable. Fantastic. Pretty much all running shoes should be like that. You don't need fancy 3D stretch mesh like you have with some ASICS shoes. It's just simple, good. Now continuing with the Prologue system, they kind of changed that a bit too, coming from Kinvara 6. So this is a system where you have really loose kinds of like flaps on the left and the right. And they really help tighten down that midfoot and locking that in place, which is good. Indeed, which is something I actually quite like about the Kinvara series, because it locks down your midfoot and makes sure that the midfoot is secured while still leaving your toes room to splay, which is good. With this version, they have like a sort of an offset where the lateral one is further down the foot, whereas the medial one is further up the foot. Now, what Saucony also always advertised with this shoe, this Kinvara 7. Is that it has stability, and indeed it does have stability. This is partly due to the just continuous midsole, but also, of course, I think somewhat through the Prologue system. Stability not in the sense that it's like a pronation support shoe, but for those who tend to have slight pronation, this could actually work quite well. Aside from that, of course, it's still a neutral shoe, so everyone who's running a neutral, who has neutral pronation, should be fine with this shoe too. That is pretty much it. The tongue is perfect the way it's supposed to be. Heel counter is there. It's not very noticeable. I think it's just a sweet spot. Heel counter really extends only until up here, so halfway around through the heel, and it supports your heel quite nicely without being obnoxious. So that's good. Now comes the one huge issue I have with this shoe, or the gripe I have with it. And that is those bits up here where you loop the laces through. It is not a problem with my right foot, but it is a problem for my left foot. And I don't have that problem with any other running shoe, aside from the 870 V3s, but that was like years ago. So I have many pairs of running shoes. This is the only shoe where it's really that obnoxious, that much of a problem. The problem is that those bits up here, they dig into my ankles. And touching my ankle right now, if I touch that spot, it actually kind of hurts, just because I've been running so much with those shoes. The problem is, compared to the Kinvara 6, that those bits up here are somewhat reinforced on the outside, I think, with like a plastic overlay. Now touching this, it feels kind of stiff too, but I somehow never had the issue with that shoe. And it's the same size. I don't know what's wrong, but I can really notice it. And it usually fades away after like 6Ks ish, but it's still 6Ks where it's really uncomfortable. And I don't know, like, it's just not good. I don't know what they did. Maybe it's just my foot. The important thing is try the shoe on before you buy it, or make sure that this is not an issue, because it's really uncomfortable, and oftentimes make me prefer going with the Adidas Boston Boost over this one, even though this is lighter and I prefer the cushioning. In terms of cushioning generally, shoe is really kind of like in the middle area. It's not super softly cushioned like Gel Nimbus or even Cumulus, but from Asics, and it's not as cushioned as like a Ride from Saucony, but it has nice cushioning to the extent where it kind of makes your foot work, but it still provides enough cushioning for you to really be comfortable across long distances. And having this as part of your shoe arsenal is something I can only recommend wholeheartedly, or something like this. A lightweight, everyday trainer. You can run many miles in this shoe. They have good grip on all surfaces, no matter whether it is forestry tracks or just tarmac. It's great for tarmac though, don't get me wrong. And something I really like about this shoe is how sparsely they use rubber on the outsole. They only use it where it's really needed. So back here in the heel, but also here in the front where you really strike with the ball of your foot, and you can really see how I'm using kind of like those rubber pads in here, but you don't really notice them, and it's absolutely fine, and the midsole is holding up quite nicely. Really good measure to save weight. Generally the shoe is really light, and it just is generally a joy running with shoes like this, which are as light as this one is, if only it wasn't for this bit up here at the ankle. So I don't think I will run an endless amount of miles in those shoes just because of that issue. But if that issue wasn't there, this would probably be my favorite running shoe for this season that I'm using right now. I think that's very well possible, just in terms of everyday training. So there we have it, Saucony Kinvara 7. Try it on, consider it. It's supposed to last longer than the previous version. Let's see what it does. But I like it. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch in the comments. This is just my comments on the shoe. Maybe it helps you decide whether you want it or not. Aside from that, see you out there. See you on the road. See you on the track. See you racing.